Good morning, everybody. This is Daniel here with Propelio, and on today's show, we're going to be talking about a $300,000 assignment fee that a new wholesaler that had only been in the business about 6 months landed. And I know that's exciting and that's great, but we're going to talk about how that applies to you and how you can figure out how to push forward and do different things just like that on today's show. A $300K assignment fee case study and how that applies to you.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, CreativeCashFlow.com, and Lifeonaire.
All right, man. It's been a long weekend, man. It's going to be a fun show today. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about, man.
Yeah, and what I love about it is like you've got the $300,000 assignment fee, so that's like the sexy tagline. Because like one of the newest questions people always ask is, "Well, how much can I make?" And that it ranges from $1,000 to $12,000, but you don't really hear 300 much.
No, I mean, it's definitely one of the largest assignment fees I'd ever heard of, and people do all the time. They're like, well, your average assignment fee is gonna be X, and it's typically not $900,000. Your assignment fees will typically land in that 5-figure range. You're gonna hit that. Every once in a while, you'll do like a 6-figure assignment fee. I haven't done any 6-figure assignment fees. I think the highest assignment fee I got was about 50 grand. So this is definitely a case study to take into consideration, pay attention to. But ultimately, the moral of the story, or however you're supposed to say that, the point to it isn't the fact of, you know, that the dude made $300,000. It was all of the obstacles he had to overcome to get there. And that's the whole point of today's show. It's not a case study about $300,000. That's just what happened because of all the things he did. So the whole point today is to talk about everything he did up into that most people would have probably just stepped up to the plate and been like, I don't know how to do that. This is outside of my ballpark, and walked away. But he didn't do that, man. He became a Google master. He really did. So
Google master.
Yeah, shout out to that dude. So, yeah, man, I mean, moving forward, we've got quite a few people watching. We've already got quite a few people tuned in. Let's take a look at this property, and let's take a look at the whole scenario. New wholesaler, Aaron Silk. New wholesaler, he's been out there, and he's knocked out, I'm not going to say, you know, thousands of deals, but he'd knocked out at that point in time, I guess, probably 5 or 6 assignments in a small local town, just going out there, hitting out assignments. And he's dropping bandit signs. Like, that's his regular go-to. He's dropping bandit sign after bandit sign after bandit sign. And he goes through and he gets like his 5th or 6th deal. And it is a worn down kind of house there. They're in a small remote community outside of DFW. And it's got a tenant in place, and it's an absentee landlord. Homeowners just flat out like, you know what, I'm tired of this. Nobody pays me. Nobody ever pays me. And I'm tired of being a landlord. I'm ready to get out from under this. He gets the house contracted, lots of drama, tenants in place, threatens to burn down the house, everything else in between. But he finally gets it across the finish line. And by getting it across the finish line, he built some rapport with this seller. And this seller, unknown to him at the time, owned millions and millions and millions of dollars in real estate.
And there's 2 things to what you just said that are callbacks to previous shows. Like, there were multiple shows last week where we talked about how when you're talking to somebody, they need to be the most important person in the room, because you never know. You never know. You might be talking to somebody who's related to a gajillionaire.
Right.
So you never want to blow somebody off. You want to, hey, whatever's going around me, you're the most important person in the room. And on the second thing was rapport buys more houses, properties than anything else ever will.
It's the absolute truth. And the thing that you just said is very important. It's like you go into a networking room and you start scanning the room and you're like, wow, $500 shoes, suit and tie, super awesome. I'm gonna go talk to that dude. And then you see some other guy in a pair of mismatched socks and penny loafers wearing a pair of shorts and a funky Tony Bahama shirt or whatever that is.
Right.
And you're like, I'm gonna go talk to this dude that's got, $7,000 worth of clothes on versus the other guy. Well, most of my experience comes from, more often than not, it's the guy that's well underdressed, underplayed, that is the guy in the room that you should probably be talking to.
The person that looks the most comfortable.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, because from everything I have seen, most all of my capital partners show up in a t-shirt and shorts everywhere they go. It's just, that's how they roll. They enjoy being comfortable. They don't have to impress anybody. They're okay with life. Very same situation with the seller that we're talking about right now. This seller, like, pair of coveralls, and he's in his mid-70s, works like he's still broke, goes out every day, all day long, just work. And the guy's got millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars in real estate. So this is crazy how it unfolds. So like, he finishes closing on that deal, the first one I talked about, where he contracts the house. Report kind of strained through that because the tenant that was in place was just absolutely refusing to move. Well, he finally gets the property closed, and the seller comes up to him and is like, hey, I know that you had a lot of problem with that one, but I know that you pulled it off and you did what you said you were going to do. I appreciate working with people that do what they said they'll do. Would you be interested in buying one of my other properties? And immediately the guy's like, hell yeah, I want to buy one of your other properties. I'd gladly buy one of your other properties.
I just saved $2 on a bandit sign.
Yes, it really did. So like he's like, sure, what's the address? He gets the address, throws it in, and it's not what he's used to. It's totally not what he's used to. So for everybody that's out there talking about, you know, we're gonna wholesale houses, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, the guy comes back with a warehouse. He's like, I want to wholesale my warehouse. Or not wholesale, I want to sell my warehouse. And the wholesaler, he just doesn't have that much experience, A, in single family homes, let alone B, large commercial complexes. So a lot of the times, newer wholesalers or newer investors in general, whenever they get hit with the problem, if they don't understand it, they pull away. And that'll take us back to a lot of the other shows that we're doing, and that is like, networking is incredibly important. One of the things that you say more often than anything, and one of the things that I failed to do a lot of when I first got started in this business, is understanding how important that network was. So whenever you get hit with a problem and you don't know what to do, you need to start going out to your network and start trying to tag people in and figure out what's going on. So he gets on, you know, on the Senior Mentor Google, and Google's like, he's like, commercial brokers in blank, 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 commercial contracts, commercial this, commercial that. This guy puts together like a 15-page commercial contract with no other experience other than Google, download, change names, gets this 15-page contract and locks this property up for like $1.2 million.
But that goes back to what we always talk about, is just take action.
It really,
like, you could take somebody who's and I'm not saying Aaron's this, but you could take anybody who's the dumbest individual in the world and has no clue what they're doing, but they take action over the person that's just like super intelligent, super knows everything, but kind of scared or hesitates. Who's going to win?
All day long, the one that takes action. And this guy did take some massive action. I mean, like, just think about it for everybody that's out there watching right now. You get thrown a property your direction, and you're used to single family homes. You've got that kind of wrapping around in your head. You're a new wholesaler. You've done like 5 or 6 deals. It's been 6 months in. You don't have a whole lot of experience. And now all of a sudden you're looking at commercial office industrial warehouse, and we're talking about a multi-million-dollar property. And now you're not only trying to get the property under contract. The contracts you normally use aren't going to function for this. Your experience that you've got in the past isn't going to function for this. And this deal's got a couple extra zeros that you've never even seen before in your life.
That could intimidate the hell out of you.
All tied into one deal. So if you're out there watching right now, how are you going to respond to that? How are you going to feel about that? What's going to happen in your mind? This dude literally goes to Google, Googles a contract, puts that together, and now he's got the ARV, stabilized asset on this property, is about 3.4 to 3.5 million. He locks it up for $1.2 million. Now, I think that's A, incredible, and B, just shows you that just because you have put yourself into that box of I'm a single family investor, or I invest into single family homes. There's another person here locally, buys tons and tons and tons of lots. You know, he always shows up to meetups wearing Royce. He always wears a shirt that says, you know, I buy lots and lots of them. And that's his kind of niche. He's gone into lots. Well, if I'm focused and I say I'm nothing other than a single family investor, and then I start seeing opportunities come to me like mobile homes. We talk about mobile homes on this show all the time. If I get a mobile home, or if I get a vacant property, if I get a commercial property, if I get a car wash, if I get an apartment complex, how are we going to deal with that? How do we as a single family investor deal with these oddball scenarios that get thrown at us? You need to network. You need to expand your knowledge. So through this guy locks it up, gets it under contract. And how does a newbie single family investor with no experience wholesale a multi-million-dollar commercial project?
Network.
That's all he had to do. That's all he had to do. He shows up to one of the largest meetups at the time in the area, and he's walking through, and guess who he's asking about properties?
Everyone?
Every single person in the room. One person to the next. Hey, I've got a commercial property.
Oh, I only do single family.
I only do single family. Hey, I've got a commercial property. Hey, I've got a commercial. And he just goes from person to person to person. And he circles that room probably 5 or 6 times, asking every opportunity he gets. Who do you know that buys commercial properties? That's how I meet the guy. Never really met him before, never really spent any time talking to him before. He walks up and he's like, hey man, how you doing today? Things are going good. Do you know anybody that'll buy a commercial property? And I was like, well, throw some numbers at me real quick.
And that goes, again, I know we've already kind of gone that line of, hey, throw back to earlier show. But one of your most famous quotes here is, I buy numbers, not houses.
I don't understand why people get tied up on that, because it's all about the numbers. If the numbers make sense, do the deal. Some people will be like, well, I only do single family homes. I only do duplexes. I won't do a condo. I won't do a townhome. I had one deal I made close to $40,000 on in 2 weeks. It was a super light remodel, and a lot of people were passing up on it. When I say a lot of people, I was like the 5th person to know about it. And when you hit the 5th person and 4 other people know that there's money to be made and they walk on it, that's a lot of people in my books. But it was a 40,000, and nobody wanted to buy it because it was a condo. And it was like, it's a condo, but you're getting it for 40, retails for 110, and it needs about 7 in work. How much more do you need to think about? So yeah, we go back to it. He's walking around and he's like, hey, you know anybody that buys commercial properties? He's like, just throw me the real simple numbers real fast. What are you thinking on this thing right now? And he's like, well, right now I'm offering it out at like 1.5 million, I think is what I ended up buying it for. I'm offering it out at 1.5 million and resale on it right now as it sits, because he didn't at the time really understand how to determine after repaired value. His BPO for the property as it sat came in at like 2.2 million. So like even at the 1.2 that he got it at, he was almost $1 million under market value for this property. And it's like, okay, so your BPO comes in at 2.2 million. You got it locked up at 1.2 million. You're offering it out at 1.5 million.
Real quick, BPO?
Broker's price opinion. So he called up some of the commercial brokerages, hit up some of his friends. He's like, hey, I know that you're a real estate agent. Can you help me figuring out what the value is for this property? That agent had no experience in commercials. So that agent reached out to his broker and was like, hey, you're a broker. You know a lot more about commercial property than I do. Can you help me out with getting a value on this property? So all through the beginning of this guy had no clue how to evaluate, how to contract it, how to do anything with the property. He just starts asking and just taking action. The broker comes back and he's like, honestly, like right now, as is value, I'd probably list this property around 2.2 million. He's got it locked up at 1.2 million. You could imagine how excited this guy was. Like, he's like, oh my, it's gold mine, gold mine. He's getting super excited. So all of that to be said, he comes up to me and he's like, right now, BPO comes in at like 2.2. I'm offering it out at 1.5, so you're getting instant equity on the front side. I just need this thing gone. And I'm like, all right, you've piqued my interest. I wasn't at the point in time where right then and there I could contract it, but I was like, hey, like, let me take a look at this tonight and I'll give you an answer tomorrow morning. I get home, I run my own analysis on it, and I'm like, man, the stabilized value on this property's hitting the $3 million to $3.5 million range. If I'm getting it at 1.5 million outside of this completely being a absolute horrid property, this is a deal. And I ended up getting it under contract with him. He didn't really know how to do an assignment on a commercial property. He didn't know how to do it. I literally wrote the assignment for him. I write the assignment for him. He assigns it to me and we get moving along. But I had in my assignment like a 15-day due diligence period. I don't remember exactly what it was, but on commercial property, I'm not going to just lock it up, because there are certain things that you need to know about commercial properties, and especially purchasing commercial property, and that is the leases that were in place prior to your purchase have some precedence over your abilities to do things afterwards. So I needed to analyze all the leases. I need to figure all that out. Well, he has no experience in commercial leasing or commercial purchases or acquisitions. So he hasn't done any of that stuff on the front side. He's got some basic understandings of like, all I have are month-to-month rents. I don't have any written contracts in place, but this is what they're paying. But he has no other information other than that.
There's a mini nugget there, if y'all are watching and didn't pick it up, which is by very nature, when we're working with somebody and I have my role as the buyer, you have your role as a seller, there's kind of this unwritten rule. It's like, that's your job. You need to take care of it. But when money's on the line, screw that. Just if I have to do your job to make the money, who cares? So even in that situation, I don't think anybody would pass up that much money, but I think there might be people hung up on the fact of having to do somebody else's quote unquote job. And then it's like, well, why are you making so much money when I did your, who cares how much somebody's making? Even if you do everything for them, and they're still making this giant nugget. If it's worthwhile on the back end, who cares? So don't get hung up on something like as petty as that.
That's extremely important, and that's also to take it another step further than that. And what Ryan was trying to say, and what I'm gathering you were trying to say is, I could have been super pissed off. It's like, dude, you're getting paid all this money. I need you to do your job and earn that money that you're making. I could have done that, and there's another thing to think about. Since he didn't have all of the deals structured that well, as a more experienced investor, I could have went around him on contract. I could have went straight to the seller. I could have tried to completely cut him out of the deal, pull $300,000 off the plate, put it into my pocket. I could have done all of those things, but real estate is so much more important than the deal.
Right.
It's relationships, it's network, it's about creating and establishing value amongst all parties. And if you go out there, and there's a lot of people that get into this business and they just burn bridge after bridge after bridge after bridge. There's only so many bridges you can burn before you're out of bridges inside of this community that are easy to cross. I mean,
yeah, and let's be honest, a Googled commercial contract, it's probably a little bit different than a Trek 1 to 4, and you probably could have. I know you research stuff like that all the time, so you probably could have just ripped that thing apart and just poked so many holes that it was an invalid contract.
I could have done a lot of things, but
again, it goes back to burning bridges.
It goes back to that and just straight up ethics, man. I mean, the dude earned it. He secured a great deal. There was no point in arguing with him about that. Above and beyond just getting the property under contract at $1.2 million, the dude went through and did something amazing, and he negotiated, in addition to just the contract, terms. Terms means a lot. Just like I tell people all the time, like somebody will come up to me like, hey man, I'm really trying to sell my house. I'd love to sell it. I need to get rid of it. What would you like to do? And I'll be like, I'll give you $1 million for it. And the house is only worth 50 grand. And what you fail to realize, and what so many people out there, like, I'll ask the crowd right now, how many people, and let me see this through a show of thumbs and hearts. Like, if you would pay $1 million for a $100,000 house, show me a bunch of hearts. If you pay $1 million for a $100,000 house, show me a bunch of hearts. If there's no way at all you would ever pay $1 million for a $100,000 house, show me a bunch of thumbs. And I'm going to explain real quick why this matters and why you should be thinking like this. So for everybody that's out there right now throwing out the thumbs, saying, you know what, I would never buy a $100,000 house for $1 million. And then for everybody that's out there throwing out a heart saying, yeah, I'd pay $1 million for a $100,000 house. The question that we need to pay attention to is,
we got a split on the audience recap.
Yeah, we do. We've got a bunch of hearts coming in. We've got a bunch of thumbs coming in.
A couple angries.
We've got a couple angry people. I don't know why people are angry with me right now.
No, like angry, like I'm not going to pay that.
Let me explain this to you. So you're both right. And you're both right because I didn't give you enough details to really make an educated decision as to what's going on there. So the honest answer is it depends.
It's the answer to every real estate question
really is.
Of all time. And it's almost comical on this show because anytime somebody asks a question in the feed and the answer is always like, it depends.
It's hard to throw out blanket statements in there, but what I will tell you is you need to understand terms over price. Terms mean a lot. So $100,000 house all day long. I know there's never a chance in the world I will ever sell that house for more than $100,000. And this seller is completely and totally crazy. And they're like, my only goal in life is to be a millionaire, and this house is what's going to do it. I will never sell this house for less than $1 million. And if you're not going to pay me $1 million for it, I will never sell it. The $1 million price tag means nothing to me. The $1 million absolutely means nothing to me. At the point in time that I know the neighborhood and I know what he's asking for the house, I can already in my head probably assume that the price is absolutely crazy. So I'm not even worried about the price anymore. So if you want $1 million for the house, that's great. What terms are you offering me that'll get me to that 100,000 or get me to that $1 million? Well, if they're wanting $1 million cash, game over. I'm not going to really be able to do that. But if they're willing to say, let's say, and here's some really crazy terms, what if you gave me owner finance? Would you owner finance that property to me for $1 million? I'll pay you $1 million for that house if you owner finance it to me, but I want a 1,000-year mortgage. This is where we're getting crazy. And like paying $1 million for a $100,000 house is pretty crazy. So the terms would also need to be pretty crazy. What if I gave you a 1,000-year loan with no amortization meaning I don't pay any monthly payments on this at all, and I do a 1,000-year balloon? That right there tells me that I can now own this house for the next 1,000 years, never make a single payment on it. I can rent it out for 1,000 years, and at the end of 1,000 years, I'll have to pay $1 million on a balloon. Well, in 1,000 years, I can assume that that inflation and everything goes crazy. I don't have to worry about that house. So are you starting to understand, for everybody that's watching, how you can pay way more for a house than what you would ever pay if you were actually, paying cash? Terms means a lot. Well, this wholesaler gets this property locked up at $1.2 million, and he also negotiates an owner finance scenario with the seller where the seller finances $500,000 of the property at 3% amortized over 5 years, with a $520,000 balloon. I don't know about you, but those are some fairly amazing terms. So he gets the property under contract, and not only does he get it under contract, he gets it under contract with financing in place. Not only did he get financing in place, he got great financing in place. A 5-year amortization on $500,000 with a $500K balloon at the end, with a $1.2 million acquisition price and a $3.5 million resale.
And a 3% interest rate?
At 3% interest rate. This was an amazing deal. I don't know how in the hell this guy was able to go to this event, walk around the room, multiple laps without somebody taking a hold of this deal.
But that goes back to the very first thing we were talking about when you're networking, and you make sure when you talk to somebody, they're the most important person in the world. So I can assume, and hopefully this doesn't come as a dig at Aaron, but I can assume if Aaron is walking around the room and I've never seen him before, he looks like he's a deer in the headlights. He's talking like he doesn't know what he's talking about. Yeah, right. You got a $1.2 million deal. It's like, yeah, right.
I can see that.
I can see that. Like people just go, maybe the numbers made sense, but it's like they do that judgment thing, which again
can get you in some trouble.
That's the one thing I love about real estate. Nobody cares if you're black, you're white, you're a woman, you're gay, you're straight, you're male, whatever. It's all about the numbers. But that being said, if you judge that person in the sense that they're full of crap,
right?
Well, you might just lose a monster deal.
Because I've wondered that myself. I was like, how in the heck did I get this when this guy's circling a room full of key players? I know this room has players in it. How did none of these other people be like, what did you just say?
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's do something. Because it only took me about 45 seconds of conversation to be like, what?
Yeah.
What'd you just say?
I think on that note, I think that's a good time for a quick break. So, before we go to break, just think about that. Treat everybody with respect and treat everybody like they're a player until you pick up on that they're full of crap. At least try to pretend like they know what they're talking about. But that's what, treat everybody with respect and go from there. And we'll be right back after this break.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
And we're back. So what we're talking about today with Daniel, we're talking about being creative. We're talking about a $300,000 case study, but not necessarily so much about the money itself, but the obstacles it took to get there, how to network, when you're networking, treat people with respect, and then just also learn the power of Google. So we've got a lot of dialogue between Daniel and myself, a lot of comments. We'll get to those here at the end of the show. So please drop in the comments what you think. What struggles are you going through? What are some ideas that you have? Where do you want to see this conversation go, et cetera, et cetera. But like, share. Also, if this show is helping you and you think it'll help somebody else, send it to somebody. Send it as a message. Be like, hey, John, I think you'll really like this. That helps us. And when you like it, that tells the internet that this is a relevant video and people like it. So help us out.
Some of the key things about that deal that I think are important, and they go back to the two words that I used to describe this deal in the comment section above. I used resourceful and perseverance, because this guy up front had no network, had no experience, but he was resourceful. He went out and he didn't just let obstacles stop him. He went out and he searched the internet and he was like, hey man, I need to find a commercial contract. He finds a commercial contract. He's like, I don't know how to evaluate this property. Instead of just throwing that down the hill, he's like, well, let me find somebody that can help me evaluate. He was being resourceful. And now let's start talking a little bit about perseverance, because he was starting out, doing 5 or 6 deals as a new wholesaler 5 or 6 months in. There wasn't a lot of volume of business going on. This was a key piece to his business and being able to move forward and go forward in this business. That's a big assignment fee. Well, when he goes to assign it to me, like I said, he didn't have an assignment contract. We had to put something together on that side. And I'm on the phone with him and he's like, man, I know I offered it to you for 1.5. And he's like, are you okay with me doing an assignment fee because I can't double close it? He's like, I honestly don't even know how to double close it. I'm new. And I was like, man, I don't really care if you make an assignment fee on this. I want you to make an assignment fee on this. Let's do that. And he's like, well, what if I told you it's a big assignment fee? And I'm like, dude, I don't care how big your assignment fee is. I'm okay at 1.5 million. I'm good at buying it there. And he's like, well, how big do you think it is? And I was like, well, considering the purchase price, I wouldn't be surprised if it was 50 to 100 grand. And he was like, more. And I was like, dude, I don't care how much money you made. If you make money, I don't care. And he's like, more. And I was like, all right, 200 grand. And he was like, more. And I'm like, okay, I'm not saying I'm jealous right now. I'm kind of excited for you here. I really am. But congratulations, dude. If you made more than 200 grand on this assignment fee, I will shake your hand. I'll bring you a bottle when we come to the closing table. I don't care how much money you make. I'm glad that you're making it because the numbers make complete and total sense for me. And I was like, dude, I don't care how much money. He's like, dude, I'm making $300,000 on this assignment fee. And I was like, ouch, that hurts. But good job. Yeah. Fist bumps, man.
And on that, I do want to say, because there's an element there. Don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that yeah, you can be like, oh, screw you, man. Oh, man, I just paid you whatever. Don't be that guy that tries to renegotiate the last minute. If the numbers work, they work. Don't be that guy that's like,
this is where
you made $100
comes
money
in.
And then I screw you.
This is where perseverance comes in, because remember how we do the assignment fee up front? And I told you how to do like a 14-day option or a 15-day option on there. I'm not going to start my due diligence process on a commercial complex without having some sort of contract in place. And B, I'm not going to just purchase it without doing some form of due diligence.
And on that, real quick, just because in the single family space, wholesale deal, typically you're talking anywhere from 3 to 4 days to like a 30-day process. Like, because we always say 7-day close.
Right.
I don't know why I just did the shimmy thing. That's the 7-day shimmy. Hopefully Trey didn't pick that up. But but anyway, my point being, it's usually a very short process of I got the lead, I got the contract, I got the wholesale, or going to buy it, I got assignment contract, and I got the close, and I got a check. That's typically with a 30-day process.
This one had like a 6-month close.
Right, but that's what I was just pointing out, the big difference in that.
Yes, this one had like a 6-month close, which I was comfortable with. It made my deal a lot easier. But to get it under contract, I put down like $10,000 or $15,000 non-refundable, something along those lines, just to say, hey, I'm solid. I'm interested in this. I'm not just he's not gonna just assign it to me and be like, well, take the next 15 days and hopefully this works. So no, I gave him like a non-refundable deposit up front just to say, I'm putting this down so I can have access to my due diligence.
I know you hate distractions, but I just saw Astrid say good morning from Guatemala.
Wow.
And I think that's really cool. So have fun on your vacation, Astrid, and thank you for tuning in from Guatemala.
I feel very humbled to know that I have somebody on vacation watching this right now.
In Guatemala.
Much appreciated there, Astrid. In Guatemala. That's Guatemala. I can't get side
Geography. Who knows? Anyway, sorry.
So coming back to it, we're in this 15-day due diligence, and this is where the word perseverance comes in. I need to know, before I buy this, what terms are in place on these leases? Because when I buy this, I have to maintain any leases that are already in place. So I'm like, have you done any estoppels? And he comes back to me, he's like, estop what? Say what? And I'm like, okay, no big deal, no big deal. At least your contract that you were fortunate enough to find says in there clearly that the seller has to provide you estoppels that are less than like 2 weeks old.
And can you define estoppel real quick?
Okay, so an estoppel, for everybody that's out there watching right now, an estoppel is essentially a document that says that you hand all of the tenants. Like if I'm going to go out and buy a mobile home park, if I'm going to go out and buy an apartment complex, if I'm going to go out and purchase anything, even a single family home that has a tenant in place, an estoppel is a piece of paper that you hand the tenant and you have a bunch of questions on there. It's like, how long is your lease for? Do you have any verbal agreements with the landlord that are not written? Is there any deferred maintenance on this property that you're obligated to repair? Do you have any security deposits on file? Do you have any extra, security deposits, rents, anything that you've paid above and beyond? Because I need to know all of these things. I don't want to buy this house from, let's just call it a single family residence. I buy a house, it's got a tenant in place, and then after I buy it, the tenant comes back and be like, well, before we closed, I gave the seller the next 10 years worth of rent, and I get to live here for the next 10 years because I've already paid 10 years worth of rent. That very well could have happened. This is a story that I've heard literally, like somebody told me this happened, and it's like, what the hell happened? Like the tenant pays the seller before closing a year's worth of rent up front, because they don't want to lose their house. The seller takes that person's rent, but doesn't disclose it to the buyer. The buyer buys the house, and there's been a transaction that occurred prior to them owning the house. I have to abide to that contract.
And forgive me for taking this tangent, but what Daniel just shared is huge. It might have been somebody else's story, but the whole point of Propelio TV is to highlight situations so you can be aware and you not run into that. So if you're going to buy a rental property that has a tenant in place, get the estoppel, because in that scenario, you're screwed.
Screwed big time.
Because the tenant ain't going anywhere. And if you have a mortgage on that property, if you have some sort of debt servicing, you're out. You're just out.
Estoppels are incredibly important. I get an estoppel on every property I contract that has a tenant in place, whether it be single family, multifamily, mobile home, commercial. It does not matter. I get an estoppel put in place.
Even if the lease is, well, it's only 3 more months. Okay.
Yeah, that can burn you bad. That can burn you bad. So that's what I'm talking about, estoppels. So I'm like, hey, Aaron, have you got estoppels for this complex? And this isn't me taking any jabs at him. He didn't understand what estoppels were. So I was like, well, cool. Let's through the contract. The contract clearly states that the seller has to give you these estoppels. Let me put some estoppels in your hand. And Aaron went out and got estoppels from every single tenant, and it told me what was going on in the complex. Yes, I am month to month. Yes, I am $12,000 behind on payments. Yes, I have deferred maintenance. Yes, I have this problem. I have this problem.
Yes, I am paying $100 when I should be paying $10,000.
Really, this was what was going on, but that gives me an understanding of what's going on there. The next key thing that I have to figure out beyond the estoppels and figuring out what's going on with the tenants is anytime I go to purchase commercial property, I need to do what's going to be called I completely just totally spaced it, but it's a phase 1. It's what they're going to call a phase 1 EPA test. It's a soil test, and it's basically a due diligence into the history of the property. Has it ever been used as like an oil refinery? Has it ever been used as a junkyard? Has it ever been used as a gas station? Because if we have some of these types of businesses on their chemical manufacturing complex, there is the potential for that ground to be contaminated. And you do not want to guess what soil remediation costs.
Right. Now, is that a government thing or is that a protection thing against a future?
That's a protection for me thing. Because if I purchased this and I didn't know that the tenant that just vacated, let's just say it was, and I don't want to use the, like, let's just say a really big chemical manufacturer.
Right.
And this big chemical manufacturer was not disposing of their chemicals properly and they were just pouring it out on the ground, That is a really big problem to begin with, but B, it's a really big problem when it becomes my problem. Because if I purchase that property and there's been soil contamination and I was not aware of that at the purchase, I might be responsible for millions and millions and millions of dollars worth of soil remediation. Like I have heard through the grapevine, and I don't know this specifically, but Bell Helicopter used to own a very big complex. And it wasn't Bell Helicopter, it was Avial. Avial owned a very big commercial complex that was like 60 acres and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands square feet of commercial building, warehousing, and all that. Like they can't even sell it for 200 grand right now. They've been trying to get it sold. They've been trying to get people to purchase it. Nobody will buy it because the EPA, the phase 1, shows that there's massive issues with soil contamination.
Yeah,
no one wants to buy it.
I've always heard through the grapevine, and again, correct me if I'm wrong in the comment section, but again, this is just what I've heard. And like everything in real estate, you're never going to know everything. So when you hear something and it sounds right, you take it as gospel and you go on until you have a reason to research more. But that was never, ever, ever buy a former gas station, because you're going to have to dig up the entire everything and then have to potentially get rid of all the dirt and dispose of everything. You got to refill everything. And so you're not just buying the surface level, 10 by 10.
You're buying all those tanks underground. You're doing all that subsurface tanks.
All of it.
That's what the EPA is for. That's what the phase 1's for.
Again, caveat to that, if the numbers work, the numbers work. Because again, it goes back to, it depends. But anyway.
There's a lot of people that do that. They go out and buy these gas stations and they do these types of things. But going back to it, estoppels are now in place. I'm working towards getting my phase 1. This is where the perseverance comes in, though. AT&T was a tenant in this building. AT&T had
no problem name dropping them.
I have no problem name dropping them at all. I would have done things totally different up front had I known things now. But AT&T was a tenant in this building, and they had been there for like 25 years and never really paid a rent increase at all. Ever. They were paying about literally like a fifth or a sixth of market rent, not even like a third, not even like a quarter. It's like a fifth or a sixth of market rents is what they're paying for this building. And they refused to sign the estoppels. So that was like a really big problem for me. They're like, well, we've got options to purchase. We've got this, we've got that. They were just throwing up smoke and mirrors because they knew they were in a bad position and they didn't have a new lease signed. So with them not having a new lease signed, they were doing everything they could to just jeopardize the acquisition because they had a honeypot deal. They were paying literally like a sixth of market rent. They were paying like $1,000 a month when they should have been paying close to $5,500, $6,000 a month for rent. So they were paying substantially suppressed market rents. And they were doing everything they could to blow this sale up. So now you can imagine how Aaron's feeling, the wholesaler. It's like, oh, wow, man, I thought I was making 300 grand. I was super excited about making 300 grand. Now AT&T is jumping in. They're messing things up. They're causing problems. And now AT&T is going to the seller. And they're like, either you sign this new lease with us or we're suing you. We're doing this. We're going to vacate. You're never going to get paid again. And the seller's freaked out. Because one of the main reasons that the seller's wanting to sell all this is because nobody will pay them. Well, the only person that is paying them is AT&T. Well, if AT&T's paying them, now AT&T's like, either you sign this paperwork, we'll never pay you again. The seller freaks out. Now the seller's like, well, we've got a contract 6 months to close. And the seller's like, either you close in the next 2 weeks or I'm signing this new contract with AT&T. AT&T's new contract was going to be like a 10-year lease at $1,000 a month, which would have destroyed any opportunity to stabilize that asset and bring up the value of that property. So if anybody's out there watching right now and you do not understand the value of commercial property is valued based essentially on the strength of the tenant, the strengths of the future potential revenue, and the strengths of the actual building and location itself. You kind of look at comparable sales, you kind of look at cost replacement value, and you look at the income all at the same time. Well, income is the biggest motivating factor in valuating commercial property. Well, if I have a tenant in place that is got a 10-year lease, meaning I can't really do anything to their lease for the next 10 years, and they're only going to pay $1,000 a month for a property that's worth $6,000 a month, it really destroys my ability to increase the value of this property by increasing rents because I can't do anything. There's a 10-year lease in place.
Your $3.5 million property immediately goes back to like 2.2 or 2.5 or something.
And that is a key thing that I want for y'all to watch. So for those that are watching and do not understand commercial evaluation, you're going to evaluate it predominantly on its ability to produce net income. And if I've got bad leases in place, that destroys my opportunity.
But this is where negotiating comes back to play because and I know the story. So on your hand, you go back to the seller saying, look, if there is a new agreement, the contract's dead.
Right.
I am not buying this property. And that's got to be kind of a everybody's on the table on edge because on one hand, Aaron's about to lose $300,000 deal. You're about to lose a $2 million increase, a value add deal. Sellers freaking out. Everybody's freaking out. So then it's just like, how do you calm everybody the F down to be like, let's just get this to work?
And that's where perseverance plays in because, man, tensions got hot. Everybody was upset. AT&T's causing problems. Seller is causing massive problems. It's like you don't want to go up to the guy and be like, dude, I understand that you're going to sign this, but I've got a 15-page contract right here that clearly states that you're not allowed to enter into any new contracts with any new individuals. Any choices that you make or any changes that you make have to go through me as the buyer first. I'm not trying to go that direction with the seller, but it's getting to the point where it's like, hey, this contract right here is a valid contract. You're going to need to abide by it. And right now, if you sign that agreement with AT&T, I'm still going to buy the property from you, but I'm going to take a discount for it because you're going to screw me up on the end for that. It got pretty nasty. So we ended up moving forward and getting the property closed, not underneath the original terms that we were looking for, because now the seller is like, well, I don't want to sell it anymore. Well, now we're having to change up terms. We're having to change up financing. We're going to have to change everything up. I only had like 2 weeks to really get this thing closed. So I had to come up with all of the capital reserves for going through and stabilizing the property, getting everything brought up to current standards, getting all that done. I had to come up with that. I had to come up with the $300,000 assignment fee, plus I had to come up with all the closing costs. So all of that added together was about $500,000. I had 2 weeks to find $500,000, and in that 2 weeks, what is the key thing that we've mentioned more than once here, and a lot of people watching probably have tuned out on, and it's that big N word that we talk about a bunch on here, network. Network. I got on the phone, and within 3 phone calls, I had somebody who was like, here's $500,000. Let's go do this.
Because it's all about other people's money?
It's if you
use your own money,
if you know how to use other people's money, if you know how to build the network and you know how to put together the deal, some of the things that I've said before are 3 key things. A, you need 3 things to put together a deal. You need time. Somebody needs to work it. Somebody needs to understand it. Somebody needs to be able to be out there, boots on the ground. So you're going to need time. You're also going to need knowledge. Somebody's going to need to know how to structure the deal. Someone's going to need to know how to manage the deal, and someone's going to know how to someone is going to need to know how to keep that deal moving forward. And the third thing you need is money. Money is what makes the deal happen at the end. If you've got 3 of those things, you can pull the deal off. If you're missing one of those things, you need to find somebody in your network that can pull that piece in, put the deal together, and that's where resourcefulness comes back into this. But through perseverance and resourcefulness, Mr. Aaron, he pulled down a $300K assignment fee with absolutely limited to no knowledge of this business prior to. And that is one of the things that I want everybody watching right now to take away from this. We talk about some of these big deals. We talk about 300K assignment fees. And while you're sitting here watching this, some of the things that might be going through your head right now is, well, that was this guy. That was Daniel. That was Ryan. That was Grant. That was one of these other guys that are like big players or people that are out here doing big deals, and they know what they're doing. And then they try and pass up in their ability to actually do this. This was not some well-rounded, super sophisticated real estate investor. And this is me not taking a dig at Aaron. This is me being truthful. He'd been in the business like 6 months. His experience was not there yet. He did not have all of that. But through his network, through his resourcefulness, through his perseverance and not saying I'm giving up, he knocked this deal down. And I want that to relate to everybody that's watching right now. You see that $300K assignment fee and you're like, man, that had to have been Daniel. That had to have been this. That had to have been that. No, this was a guy that had very limited to no experience, and he pulled this down. The big difference between what he was doing and what other people were doing is when he got hit with an opportunity like that, just like everybody else in that room that he went walking around and asking this same question to, if one of those other people had raised their hand and said, yeah, one of those 30, 40, 50 people that he talked to before he got to me, if one of those people had said, yeah, they would have been the ones making that money, not me. But it's the exact same thing with Aaron. If Aaron had said no to that seller up front, when that seller said, hey, I've got a commercial industrial office warehouse that is available to you, and he said, I don't know how to do office commercial warehouse. All I do is single family homes. I'm sorry. If he had done that, he would have lost everything. But he didn't. He didn't let fear get in his way. He didn't let lack of resources get in his way. He didn't let lack of knowledge get in his way. He didn't let lack of money get in his way. And for everybody that's out there watching right now, you need to stop letting things get in your way.
Before we go to our next break, I do want to point out, because you're bad at this, of taking credit for yourself. Because at that time, you saw opportunity as well. And at the time, you were new to commercial. That was your first commercial deal.
That was my first commercial acquisition.
And all it was you heard opportunity, so therefore you went out. And I'm not trying to here to fluff you, but it is what it is. Everything that you just gave credit to Aaron for is the same stuff that you did as well. Probably better, but not a dig. but my point being is, like, take massive action to be successful in this business. So kudos to you.
Well, I do appreciate that. And some key takeaways to think from that standpoint are, Aaron had only really been in the business for like 6 months. At this point in time, I'd been in the business for close to 6 to 7 years on the single family side, and I'd already received several education pieces from the commercial side. So while I'd never gone through a commercial acquisition, I had gone through I'd been in escrow on multiple commercial projects, and I had failed to close on any of them. I hadn't closed on them because something happened I didn't like. This one I was able to get through on the table, so that's why I was able to help Aaron through that, is I had somebody give me some education prior to.
The takeaway for me is you saw the immediate opportunity.
Right. So I'm horrible about taking compliments.
I am too, most of the time. Anyway, we're gonna take a quick break. When we come back, we'll finish up this topic, get some more takeaways, talk about some events that are coming to town pretty soon here, get some comments, and hope you're enjoying it. If you like it, share it. If you love it, more share it. If you don't like it, well, tell us why. Anyway, we'll be right back.
Propelio.com. What does Propelio offer? Lead generating websites, access to true MLS comps, off-market lead lists, and deal alerts. Get them all today at Propelio.com.
Hey, so we're back from commercials real quick. I appreciate those that stuck through the commercial breaks. I want to take a quick second to say thank you to my wife, daughter, and both of my daughters, Zyla and Tyla. Thank you both for watching. Love you, Miranda. Love you, kiddos. Thank you all for watching. And for those that are still watching and you have not yet registered for Lifeonaire's event next weekend, it is a great event. I personally believe in the Lifeonaire philosophy. Lifeonaire has done a lot of things for changing my life, changing my thought processes. This is not just because they're sponsoring the show. That has nothing to do with anything other than Steve Cook and Lifeonaire have done massive things for changing my life. He has an event coming up next weekend. It normally costs about $500 to go to, but because of my relationship with Steve, he agreed to let everybody within the Propelio network to come to his event for completely free. It is a 3-day event. It is not a sales-a-thon. You're not going to be going to that lunch sponsored by, getting sold to something. You're going to have 3 full days of actionable content, not just sneak peeks of like, hey, this is what can happen if you do this. They're gonna teach you stuff, and that falls directly in line with Propelio's philosophy of help people win, and it'll just come around resourceful abundance mentality. Lifeonaire has that same thing, free. Go check it out. Register above. You can go to that event for free. Do not register if you do not plan on showing up. That is just gonna do nothing but piss me off. But go check that out. Register for that, and we're gonna go ahead and come back to the show now here.
Yeah, and I like give a shout out to Max Maxwell too, because he's got his wholesaling elite coming to Dallas. 22nd, 24th. So check that out. He's actually going to be on the show tomorrow night with Corey. So looking forward to that. But again, always be networking. If there's opportunities to go to events, free or paid, and they're legit, go. You never know who you're going to meet.
You never know. So let's take care of some questions.
Yeah, there's a lot of love, not so many questions. One of the things Sonny was asking was like the assignment fee. It's like, couldn't you have turned that into a note? Couldn't the assigner, or couldn't he have, or whatever?
So this is what we did. So like I saw the time showing up, so I didn't start getting super deep down into massive detail. How did I get that $500,000? I had to come up with $500,000 in 2 weeks. How did I get that $500,000? So let's look at this from two different perspectives, because I didn't even throw this into the loop. I was focusing strictly on Aaron and Aaron's success. I didn't really talk much at all about what I had to do to get that deal pulled down. So for anybody that's watching right now and you're looking at yourself from Aaron's point of view, put yourself into my shoes. I am the buyer on this contract and I'm the one closing on this deal. Put yourself into my shoes and think to yourself, how are you going to come up with $500,000? You know, start letting those thought processes go. And for some of y'all that are out there like, yeah, I can get $500,000 pretty easy. You know, that was kind of my case. Well, for some of y'all out there that are watching, they're like, well, you know, that couldn't have been me, because there's no chance I could have ever got $500,000. Why was it so easy for me to get the $500,000? Because I have the knowledge, and I have shown through extensive action over many years my willingness to persevere and my resourcefulness. So I had people that were willing to give me the capital, but moving past that, I was able to structure this deal 100% financed. I to this day do not have a dime of my money tied up into that property. How was I able to acquire that and put all that together? Well, one of the things that I learned getting started out was I had no money. Like when I first started in this business, literally it's like the rags to riches story. No money. I was just coming off of some massive trouble. I was having all kinds of issues in life. Zero money. Made a lot of money, but starting out with no money, I had to learn how to do business without money. So once I figured out how to do business without money, I started learning how to structure deals where I could take them down without putting any of my own capital into it. So what we ended up doing is taking $150,000 and paying that directly out to the wholesaler. We took another $150,000, generated a 5-year note on it with like 5 or 6% interest, 3 to 5 or 6% interest, and whatever it wasn't huge interest. We structured that out, and then we ended up making the deal so there's $300,000 of it there. I picked up another $200,000 from a private lender, and that's how I was able to put together the $500,000 I needed to get the deal closed.
The key takeaway there, though, is at the very beginning, fully prepared to pay $300,000 cash. Mm-hmm. But when the crap hit the fan and you had to restructure, guess what, assigner or wholesaler, you got to play ball too.
Yeah. Because the deal was crumbling.
Yeah. If you want this deal to go through, you have to have leeway as well. If everybody else has to bend, you got to bend too.
Yeah, because I lost quite a bit of money because up front, remember how I told you, once the seller started freaking out, the tenant started freaking out, the wholesaler started freaking out, I started freaking out, terms got changed. The original deal that I contracted ended up going up in price. The terms ended up being less appealing. I had a really crappy tenant in place that was trying to cause me massive kinds of problems. So a lot of things got changed between the initial thing and due diligence ending. But no matter what, he still ended up collecting his full $300,000. He collected $150,000 on a note, $150,000 in cash. And if he let the note fully amortize it would have ended up being probably closer to $220,000 that he would have made from that note. So I mean, dude made a killing on this deal. Right. So that was kind of some of the things to think about there.
Jared had a question. He was asking about why not buy the LLC holding the property versus buying the property itself.
That is a thought process, but the property was not owned by an LLC. It was owned by an individual. So I can understand why he would assume it was. Most commercial properties are owned by LLCs. This one was owned by an individual.
Right.
So buying the LLC, that for me is something I would consider in rare circumstances. It's not something I would do often. There's a lot of potential liability coming in with purchasing the LLC, but with the right due diligence, yes, that is a potential acquisition strategy to reduce your risks of A, increasing your taxes on the transference of sale, and B, triggering some due on sale clauses, and C, a lot of other little deals that you can look through. So for those that didn't catch it or know what was going on there, Jared did drop a little bit of a gold nugget there on a creative acquisition strategy that you can implement to allow you to purchase property without really purchasing property, and that's buying the LLC that owns the property.
Jared, we'll take care of your links here in a second. We'll drop those in there. One thing, real quick, shout out to our little community here. We have Propelio. Just because you got people like Sonia who's like, hey, by the way, here's a YouTube comment just in case you don't see it on YouTube. And so I really love that. Thank you so much, Sonia.
Much love, Sonia.
And then everybody in the community, because that's what we really want. Our forums that are coming to our site, the Facebook page, the groups, whatever. We want the community to help each other out. But on that, Gregory was asking about contracts. Is there a good commercial contract online?
I'm going to say there's got to be. I mean, it's the internet. There's just about anything you could possibly want on the internet. So I'm going to imagine there's going to be a commercial contract that's on there online somewhere. Yes. Following up to that, though, I feel like if you're going into some level of significant acquisitions, you don't want that. You want to bring a lawyer in. You want to bring that in, but you have to bring the right lawyer.
Tommy, what's our favorite answer? We are not attorneys.
We are not attorneys. I want you to go ahead and say, can you get a commercial contract online that will work for the deal? Probably. 2, if you have no commercial experience whatsoever and you are going up to experienced commercial people, you're probably, and I hate using this term, but it's the only thing that comes to my head, you're setting yourself up to get bent over the table. You get into the commercial world, it's a lot more cutthroat. There's a lot more, hey man, you're sophisticated. You should be able to read a contract. I understand that you just put down $200,000 non-refundable, but that option expired 4 hours ago and I'm keeping your 200 grand. It's a totally different world when you start playing with the big boys.
Same thing with the realtors too, because realtors, single family, here's some cookies, they'll play nice to everybody. Yeah, a broker or a realtor that deals in commercial space, they don't care.
It's cutthroat.
They're like, hey, here's a $10.5 million contract. Who are you?
Yeah, I don't know you.
They don't care about you.
Yeah.
So that's just something to think about. Final thoughts on this whole conversation we just had?
Really, I just wanted to make sure that everybody understood that don't let your lack of experience, and even more so than your lack of experience, don't let your fear stop you from becoming something in this industry that you can become. Aaron could have allowed the fear of knowledge, fear of money, fear of time, fear of any of these different things come into play and stop him from making this deal happen. And he didn't let any of those things stop him. So with all of that to be said, man, perseverance, resourcefulness. If you're watching right now and you've got that mindset of like, I can't do this, I can't do that, you need to get those thought processes out of your head. You need to start working on your network to find people that can shore up your weaknesses. So that way, when you are presented with opportunities, you can act upon those opportunities. But overall, the thing that I've said more than often than not, and I say to everybody that I meet whenever they ask me, is that your fear has to be bigger than your why. If your fear is not bigger than your why, you will never.
Your why is bigger than your fear?
Your why, yeah, there we go. I got that backwards. Your why has to be bigger.
Stay home. Get under the bed. Just stay there all day long.
That's how a lot of people act, though. A lot of people do that. You're going to have to let your why overcome your fear. And if you don't, you'll never get out of the rut that you're in right now. Get your why so freaking big that no fear in the world will ever stop you from doing something. You get to that point and you'll win in this business.
My final thoughts on the conversation is real estate is a team sport. Goes back to like we talk about all the time, but like the networking. But even just networking, if I'm sure Aaron doesn't know you very well or did at the time, is this new guy Daniel? Is he trying to screw me? Is he trying to screw me? Is he trying to screw me? So when the tenant was trying to screw the seller and the seller's, everybody's trying to screw each other. At some point, somebody has to bend and like, okay, let's work together. So basically get creative, work together, and have an abundance mindset of JV and being a team sport.
I love it, man. And for everybody that's out there watching, that's the things that we wanted you to learn during this show is what you just said, what I just said. Everybody that's out there watching, please don't forget, register up top for the Lifeonaire event coming next weekend. Make sure you use the DFW promo code so you can gain access for free. That is not some fluffy thing. They actually sell that, and they were nice enough to say, hey, you know what? Propelio, y'all are doing such great things for people. We want to do great things for people. We'll let anybody that wants to register into this event for free. Please go out there, register on that side. Thank you for tuning in. Share, comment, tag your friends in this. Throw in some of your fears that you're having struggles with right now overcoming. Throw some of those in the comments. I'll go back after the show, and on those comments, I'll try and give you some thought processes to help get you out of that rut. And I would like for everybody to help me right now. I need your help. This is not some joke. I need some help here. I want to make sure that Propelio is providing the best content that we possibly can for each and every one of y'all that are watching every single day. We've got up to like 10 or 12 shows now that are playing Monday through Friday. What do y'all need from us? What is it that Propelio can do for you to make your lives easier? What is it that Propelio can do to teach you? What are the things that we can teach you? What are the things that we can provide you? What are the things that Propelio can do for each and every one of y'all to make your lives better? I need help from y'all. I've got 40 plus people watching right now. I hope at least one out of y'all 40 will do us the favor of coming back and saying, hey guys, you know, can you do this to help me out? Can you talk about this to help me out? Can we do a class on this? Can you do this with the software? Give us some feedback. Let us know what we can do to help you, and I will come back to you and personally answer every one of those questions and comments.
That could be via the Propelio Mastermind group. That could be just go to Propelio Facebook. Simple and email. Whatever.
Just this video, because I'm not going to look in 50 different places. No. Comment on this video. I'm not going to go look in 50 different places.
I do.
Yeah.
Anyway, Propelio.com. If you are looking for a source for investor-friendly websites, we got you covered. If you're looking for access to true MLS comps, we got you covered. If you're looking for MLS deal alerts, we got you covered. I'll let the last two things for Daniel, because I know that's what he's most excited about.
Kind of zoned out there in my own space with the Academy.
We've got our nationwide lead list coming out soon, and we've got nationwide deal Driving for Dollars app coming out soon.
And nationwide comps.
Nationwide comps.
And nationwide comps coming out probably in the next 30 to 60 days. We've got a complete rebuild of the Academy coming out here in the next 20 days. For everybody that's been to the Academy in the past and was like, man, this is awesome. They're giving great content away, but the website sucks. The website sucked. It really did. We are working on getting the website fixed so that way you can get access to more content. There's only 4 or 5 courses out there right now. We've got an extra 200 plus videos that are being released here in the next 20 days. So if you've been in the Academy and like, well, this is great, but I want to learn X, I want to learn Y, I want to learn Z. We've got close to 200 more videos coming out at the end of the next couple of weeks with courses ranging from all different kinds of topics. And we're talking about some truly actionable courses. So go out there, check those out. Thank you for tuning in. Have a good one.
See you later, guys.
Propelio TV is sponsored by Noble Mortgage and Investments, CreativeCashFlow.com, and Lifeonaire.
Hey everybody, I'm Ryan with Propelio. If you like what you saw, please subscribe. Turn on those notifications and stick around for more. We have tons of content like this all over our channel. So if you want to learn more about real estate investing, stick around, watch Propelio TV, and we'll see you later.